Hello again, my little chickens. Welcome to Just for Farmers. I'm still David Heine, and this is still Paul Harris.
Good
Hello.
morning, good afternoon, good evening.
He still says that every time. I've got to get a better opening, haven't I? Anyway, today we're going to jump straight in yet again with our expert guest interview. Many of you have said that Paul's stuff in relation to man management, marketing of the farm, and promoting yourself and on the administration side was so helpful. But many of you were saying that you've got these desks in the kitchen with just piles of paper, broken pens, and coffee mugs and coffee rings and your admin is just all over the place on certain areas. So I brought in a very old and dear friend of mine, Doug Dorbury. Doug is Managing Director of Exec Training and Consultancy in the West Midlands. He specialises in helping business owners to become more productive and therefore help their businesses become more profitable. I hope I've done you justice there, Dougie. Welcome, Doug.
Yes, welcome, and hello to everybody who's watching and listening.
So let's jump straight in. Give us a 60-90-second potted history of what you do, how you do it, and why you do it, Doug.
Okay, so I've been doing consultancy now for 24 years and working with the small businesses, really, who really know their stuff. So they're specialists in what they do, they're specialists in their field, but they've had no real training or experience in how to grow a business and how to run a business. Because being really good as a baker or an electrician or a farmer or whatever it is you do, you are a specialist at that, but that doesn't mean that you know all what it takes to run your business. So myself and my team, I've got a team of 15 consultants up and down the country now. We work with businesses to help them to grow, but by putting the processes in, by putting the systems in that will allow them to be very, very successful in what they already know and what they're already specialists at.
Wonderful. And Paul has said a few times over the podcasts that farms are in the main either family run businesses or businesses where it's quite inherent in the community and the family's developing on the farm, so they know what they do very well indeed, but they perhaps some of them don't consider it as a business and don't run it as a proper business should be run. And it could be, quite rightly, so much more productive and profitable if they get their head around this stuff.
I think it's interesting, Doug, isn't it, that the farming, and to a certain degree you talk about electricians and carpenters and people like that, but particularly in farming, it's often referred to as a lifestyle business.
Yeah, I was about to say lifestyle, yes.
Yeah. So what happens is that the specialism, as you described it, is our passion, whether it's livestock, or it might be driving tractors or growing crops, where else it might be, or poultry or whatever. But actually the business bit, oh gosh, well, I've got to go in the office now and get on my computer out, and this thing that whirs up and I have to wait for it to start, and then it's probably on Windows 10, and oof, dear, it's not necessarily an area. And this is a massive sweeping statement, by the way. Maybe there'll be people listening going, no, I love the computer work, I'm really passionate about it. But I think if we were to stand back and say, as an industry, it isn't the thing, as you say, that's our specialism or our skill. So, and certainly the farm offices that I go into frequently have, magazines that haven't been opened at all, subscriptions they're paying for, they're not reading, lots of paperwork, invoices that need, paying, and farmers tend to do it sort of begrudgingly, I guess. So it's how can we make this part of their business?
They're probably better at ploughing through a field than paperwork, put it that way.
That's exactly it.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
So let's start at the beginning, Doug. How, if a farmer, and of course we're generalising, not all farmers are going to be disorganised and don't know what they're doing. There will be some who are superb at this, but let's just take the archetypal untidy desk, and they kind of know they've got everything, but they don't know where anything is. How do they start?
I was thinking, what's the start point?
What's the start?
So I think one of the first things that you if we're going to look at it on the basis that you've got a farm office, which is possibly the dining room table and a whole bunch of paper that's on the sideboard and gets pulled out when it needs to be, the starting point really is just putting some order into that. And what I would say is you can get 3 boxes, 3 trays, if you like. In the office, you'd see these letter trays and so on, but it doesn't matter. Three places that you can put your stuff.
Even a cardboard box.
Cardboard boxes are great. Okay, so the first thing is you then label what those 3 boxes are. And the first box would be your inbox. It's your in tray. It's the stuff that's come in that you haven't even looked at yet. You haven't had time to look at it yet. It all goes into the box. Yeah. When you start looking at it, you can then put it into a pending box, which means it needs something done, but it's not going to be done right now.
We've all got that, yeah.
We've all got that. Exactly. Following that, you then have your third box, which is effectively your outbox. And that is where you've dealt with it. It's been done. It needs now to be filed and something needs to happen with it. But the actual action that needed to be taken, the bill needed to be paid, whatever it was, has been done. And it now just needs to be put away, filed or whatever. If you have it in 3 piles, it is far more confrontable than one big pile of mess.
You know where to find stuff.
Well, it gives you the beginning stage of it.
Yeah.
The second thing I'd say is that if you pick up a piece of paper, don't ever just put it back down again, because that is a waste of time.
Especially with the opened envelope.
Yes.
Or is that just my house?
No, that's just your house.
You open something and
No,
you put it down with the opened envelope. Why don't you just throw it in the recycling? Get it? Sorry, rant over. Carry on, Doug.
Right. So if it's just arrived and you haven't looked at it yet, it's in that first box. Once you picked it up from that first box, you need to do something with it. Because if you don't, and you go, oh, I'll deal with it later, and you put it back in that box, how many times are you going to pick it up and put it back in that box? It's all wasted energy. It's all wasted time. Yeah.
Right.
Time that you haven't really got anyway, because your time is so valuable in what you're doing. And you don't really want to do this work. So why do it 3, 4, 5 times by keep picking it up and putting it down again?
The paperwork carousel. Yeah.
How would you prioritize though, Doug? Because sometimes, I pick up a piece of paper and I'm thinking, is that a 5-minute job or is it an hour's job? And I've got 3 other bits of paper that are also sitting in my inbox. How would you suggest people prioritize their tasks?
Right. Okay. So the initial stage is that you have to identify what you're going to do with it. So is it something where you can just pay a bill? Is it something where you can just send something off or whatever? Dead easy, done. It goes from the inbox to the outbox because you can just do it. If it is something that needs to be given some time and allocated some time, it's going to go in the pending box because you're not necessarily going to do it there and then. That's why you've got the 3 boxes. If you can do it right now, if it's something you can just do and get on with, fabulous. You've got time. It's a simple process. Goes from the inbox to the outbox. If you can't do something right now because you need to do some looking up, you need to speak to the accountant, you need to get the bookkeeper in, whatever, it goes in the pending box. Yeah. Now, the problem you're going to face, the pending box is going to get massive.
Yes, it gets full, doesn't it? Yeah, we've all got a pending box.
But the reality is that you will manage to get some of that paperwork done a lot faster and a lot easier if you put that system in. The next thing is, with your pending box, what you need to then do is, on a timely manner, you need to be pulling your pending box out and sorting through it in terms of what is the priorities, what needs to be done. Yeah. And really, I would, depending on how big that's going to get, and depending on how big the farm is, but depending on how much activity is required in the administration side, that might need to be done weekly, or it could even be a monthly thing if it's not that amount, a huge amount. It could be that you get a virtual assistant, a personal assistant, maybe a bookkeeper who comes in, and their job is to go through that pending box.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want to do it, get somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
For goodness sake, stop trying to do things you don't want to do.
You're 100% right, Doug. And I was speaking to a farmer here in Staffordshire. He is a dairy farmer, but when I suggested to him, why don't you get a virtual PA or somebody local to come in just for a day or a day and a half a week and sort you out? He said, I wouldn't know where to start.
But they don't need to know where to start, because the person knows where to start. That's their skill set. They're a good administrator, like the farmer is a good farmer. Yeah. So they don't have a problem. It'll take them a third of the time than it will take the farmer to do it.
I even suggested to him in that case, hire one of them to come in for an hour and tell you how to hire a PA so that you are comfortable in doing it. But you're spot on, Doug. It is relatively inexpensive in the scheme of things, and it just lifts that pressure off the person who finds that task difficult. And we've all, I can't speak for Paul and yourself when I say all, I mean all of us, but all of us have these tasks that we just don't like doing.
Correct.
And even me, filling in tax forms for HMRC, I'd rather take my eye out with a plastic spoon than fill those forms in. So it took me a while to overcome that, but now I just get someone to do it for me.
Doug, have you heard? I mean, particularly if you're remembering, particularly if you're a dairy farmer, it might be easy to remember this. Have you heard the 4Ds principle, which is very much what you're saying? So I heard once, I think it might have been Peter Thompson actually, one of his phrases. He said, when you're thinking about paperwork and you've got your 3 trays in, your 3 boxes in, there's 4Ds. You either do it, you deal with it straight away because you can. You diary it, which is effectively your pending file. I'll get to that. You delegate it, somebody else can do that, or you dump it. It goes to the waste paper bin. 4Ds. Do it, diary it, delegate it, or dump it.
Or dump it. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. It is about that. And I think the other thing is, and you mentioned diarying it, you have to allocate time to the stuff that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So David, you talked about your tax returns, yeah? If it's on your desk and you keep looking at it and you're going, oh my God, I've got to do those tax returns. And the next time you look at it, oh my God, it's just winding you up. Yeah. And you're looking at it and getting more and more frustrated because you haven't done it. You know you need to do it and it's winding you up. Yeah.
If I'm laughing in the spirit of transparency, 24 years ago, Doug was my first business coach. So when he says, David, when you talk, he knows exactly my pains. He exactly knows my pains.
No, can't hide anything here, can you? So Doug, talk to us about sticking on this same principle of just getting started. I think one of the scourges of modern life, and also I talk about paradoxes a lot, as you know, the benefits of modern life is email. And many farmers will be deluged with emails. And with farming, invariably we have a lot more inbound paperwork than outbound paperwork. Right. So we buy an awful lot of materials. So we've got invoices coming in, could be electronically, could be hard copy. We're not actually doing many external invoices, or we often only have effectively one customer, which is our milk buyer if we're in livestock, or it could be somebody buying our crops from us. So we don't do lots on the sales side particularly, but we have these hundreds of invoices for bits and pieces coming in, some of which are electronic. How do we manage our emails?
Right. Okay. I'm going to come back to this situation whereby you've got to get people to help you with it, because if you're not good at it, you've got to get other people to help with it. Yes, we can do it on our phones and we can carry them around with us and we can do all that sort of stuff. But the problem is, if you're not organized in terms of your admin, having it on your phone doesn't actually help you. It makes it worse. Yeah. So yes, in modern day world, you have to respond immediately to stuff and you've got to have it on your phone and so on. But what I would say is have a system whereby you've got there are various different systems. So this might be the right one, it might not be, but 365, which is the Microsoft system. You have SharePoint with your Outlook and so on. If you have one of those in place, I think it's about £99 a month to have a license for Office 365. You can get a virtual PA, and a virtual PA can have access to your email, and they can clear down the rubbish, they can file stuff away, and you won't even need to see it.
Oh yeah, but hang on, Doug. Ooh, I don't want people seeing my emails there. Oh, there's all sorts of things coming through. I'm playing the role here to a certain degree, because I think there may be some resistance to letting somebody else have a look at my information. Why should they overcome that resistance to that?
Right. Okay. So 2 things on that. One, if you're going to employ someone to help you with it, they are under contract to you. And within that contract, there is confidentiality clauses that are built into the contract. They cannot discuss what they're seeing or hearing around your business. Otherwise, their business will go down the pan because they'll have no credibility. So the first thing you have to understand is, if you're going to get someone to work for you, don't do it by a shake of a hand. Do it with a proper
Yeah,
contract.
yeah. Don't
Yeah.
have your mate's daughter or your auntie Ethel's cousin. Absolutely right, Doug. Hire a PA and
Hire someone to do it
hire a proper person. Yeah,
with a contract. Yes.
Do you know, you're absolutely right. I'm just thinking of, because obviously can't name the client. I had one. I can think of a client in Devon, where the single biggest difference that's made to his business is having somebody come in and do the bookwork for them. They were doing it themselves, or their partner was doing it. Very common in farming as well. Often, a partner will be doing the secretarial work.
yeah.
The single biggest thing that's made a difference to that guy's business is having somebody to worry all about that for him. And it's, as you say, it's an employed person, it's contracted,
Yeah.
she's a professional. It's made a massive difference.
So there is a lady in Staffordshire who used to be a client of mine, and I'll have to dig out her contact details. And her whole business is she does bookkeeping and PA work for farmers.
Oh,
That's
wow.
her business.
And again, I suppose if somebody's in Shropshire or Cumberland or Northumberland, all they've got to do is Google PA or virtual PA, comma Northumberland or
Yeah.
farming PA or yeah.
Yeah, she's effectively she's and she started as a bookkeeper. So she's a bookkeeper, and what she found is that when she was going in to do the bookkeeping for the farmers, she would arrive at the kitchen desk and she the kitchen table, and she'd be given a cup of tea, and she's part of the woodwork in the kitchen to do the paperwork.
Part of the family or the woodwork, Doug.
Exactly.
And just for, and
Bit of
just for the,
both.
and just for those listening, I'm sure you'll be aware of this organisation, but you can look up the Institute of Agricultural Secretaries, which is
There
the
you go.
Association of Agricultural Secretaries, which is IAGSA. So the website address is iagsa.co.uk.
Wow.
Right, and they are dedicated people to help the agricultural farmers with their paperwork.
Exactly.
Okay, so when I said hire someone to help you, there are people out there who are qualified and trained specifically to help farmers with this type of work.
Yeah, perfect.
So one of the things, Dave, and this may or may not be relevant, but it's one of the things that a good friend of ours, Tony Burgess, taught me many years ago.
Yeah.
And that was, if you don't like doing something, give it to somebody else. And the way he described that, he said, draw a rectangle in your paper and then put the equivalent of a flame on the top. Write in the flame all the things you love to do, and write in the wax of the candle the stuff you don't like to do, because it's in the wax and it's horrible. And if you want to live in the flame, give the wax stuff to everybody else to do.
I think you have a similar exercise, don't you, Dave, somewhere with that?
And one person's wax is another person's flame.
Exactly.
So let's say we've got our in trays, we've got somebody
Right.
helping us with our emails. What's the next step almost for greater productivity?
So I would say that you actually have to take a step back on this, Paul, and that is that you need to take a look at the overall setup. Okay. I've got a great blog on my website, and it's called Go Back to School, and it's about time management. And when you think about a big secondary school, David, you work in a lot of schools, you'll know how this works. There's literally thousands and thousands of kids, and they're going through year after year, and they all have to get through all of their studies. They have to get through their exams. They have to get through the curriculum in order to meet the government standards and this and the next thing. Yeah, it's a nightmare. But guess what? It's the most organized place ever, because they do time management to the nth degree.
It's true. They live their life by a bell.
They live their life by a bell. So what they do is they have 2 weeks of timetable. And on a Monday morning, on the first week, they have maths, and then they have a break and they go to English, and then and a bell tells them when to move to the next thing, and it's all timetabled. And after 2 weeks, they're back to the beginning of the timetable. We can apply the exact same principle of that into business by timetabling it. Now, I am guessing that most of your farmers have something similar going on, because they have to milk the cows at a certain time. And if they're doing arable farming, they have to do their harvest at certain times. They have to do their seeding, et cetera, et cetera. So they are running their businesses on a time-framed system.
Absolutely.
So it's about transferring their already existing skills.
Transfer that into the admin, because all you've got to do is you've got to go, okay, once a month I have to do, or we have to get the bills paid, or once a month we have to do the filing, or once a month we have to do. So just schedule it. Maybe it's half an hour a day, maybe it's half an hour a week, or it's a day a week, or something where you do the activity that needs to be done. And if it's scheduled, it has the same priority as the scheduling of the cows to be milked. It's the scheduling of the seeding to be done. It's the scheduling of the, you know what I'm saying, Paul? There's all of these activities within farming that are time restricted because they have to be scheduled.
So would you suggest, because many of us now will run an electronic diary on our telephone, says Paul, holding up his phone. My kids always take the mickey out of me, Dave, when I say telephone. That sounds very posh. In fact, it's mobile now, or phone, or whatever. Anyway,
do you still call your music centre a gramophone? Come on, Grandad, what were you going to say? Come on.
So we all carry our lives around with us on our mobiles, our phones, and they'll put appointments in. Are you suggesting, therefore, that it would be helpful to maybe put a note in the diary to schedule this admin? So put it in as an appointment.
Yeah, so what you do is in your diary, you have a section blocked out that says admin, or whatever that activity is. So you can break the admin activities down into key things that need to be done.
Could be invoicing or paying bills or whatever else it might be, or even just doing emails. I'm going to do emails, whatever, every day. And there's a reminder. How do we then get over the discipline if I still don't want to do it? It's in my diary. I've scheduled it. But I'll just go and check the cows again, actually.
Very valid point, Paul, because it's about the mindset. They're capable of doing it. It's the mindset shift to establishing that it is as important as ploughing that field or fixing that fence.
It's part and parcel of the whole process of running it's a business. I know it's a lifestyle. You know, within farming, you got the whole scenario, as we've already said, where it's a family thing. They've been brought up in it. It's just the way of life. It is part of their life. It's not a business. It's their life. It's their livelihood. It's what they do. Yeah. So, however, if they don't do it properly, it can still go bump. If they don't do it properly, they can still have a situation whereby they're not generating the necessary income to survive. The same as any other lifestyle, the same as any other business. So there are things that have to be done. The government require us to fill forms in to pay taxes. We have to tell them how much tax we have to pay. How does that work? But anyway, we have to do it. By law, there's things we have to do. So regardless of whether you want to do it or not, there are things that have to be done in order to keep a business functioning. So they are a priority. So Dave, you're absolutely right. These things are a priority and they need to be done. So you need to allocate the time to it. And you know, once you start allocating bits of time to it, then it becomes easy, because it becomes just part of your routine.
I was just going to say, Doug, is it about, sorry to talk over you, but is it about creating habits, good habits? So if we commit to do it in the diary, 2 or 3 weeks, whatever. It's interesting because I have in my diary, I have it blocked out in red. Every Friday is what I call office day. And I do not book appointments unless it's absolutely necessary on a Friday. Now, that was given to me as a suggestion because I was always never had time to catch up. So someone just said to me, put it in your diary. And now I don't think about it now. It's automatic. I don't, generally, if I can, avoid seeing clients on a Friday. So is it just a question of the discipline is just getting started?
Getting started. Now, one thing you can do is you can reward yourself for that.
Oh, we like rewards, don't we, Dave?
I say if we say that to farmers, they'll be down the Dog and Trumpet with a pint of Princess petrol by 4 o'clock every day.
Well, you say that, but that could be the reward if that's what they like. If that's
sounds good to me.
So what they can do is they can go, right, okay, if I go in on a Friday at 12 o'clock and get all my admin done by 3, I'm down at the local church having an ale. Oh, the pub's called the church.
Now, let's actually go a little bit deeper on this, because we can talk about motivations and say just put it in the diary. We can all know to do this stuff, but then it's actually doing it when that reminder buzzes in on your phone in your pocket. It's having that come on, let's do it attitude. So we can be bullish with people, and we can suggest that, okay, what would you prefer? The stress each month of not knowing where you stand financially, not knowing how much you owe the inland revenue or the local auctioneer or
The bank,
or the bank, yeah,
Yeah.
and looking at that pile of paperwork, or fearing the letters coming through the letterbox each month, or what is enough of a motivator to make this a habit, a positive habit? So, does it motivate you enough to think, actually, I know where I stand financially. I know who I owe. I know who owes me. I know it's building enough of a reason, a positive reason why we must do it, that's bigger than our fears and insecurities around doing it in the first place.
So we come back to what we've already been talking about. So first of all, if you get some help with it, so if you're really struggling with it, get some help with it. As soon as you get some help with it, what happens is that puts a discipline in immediately, because a weekly basis or a monthly basis, Mary or Peter or whoever the person is that's coming into the farm to help you with the admin is turning up to do it. Yeah, they're going to be there. They're going to be sat in your kitchen to help you with that. So you cannot say, oh, I'm just going to go and plow a field, because that person, you're paying for them to be sat there. So you have to it. So by putting someone else in play, it creates the discipline. That's one thing. Secondly, it teaches you how to do it. Thirdly, you then start seeing the results of it, and you start seeing the information, and the stress starts to go down, and you start getting in more information, and you start feeling better about it all. You're never going to want to go back to how it was. So you've got to put that system in slowly. It won't happen overnight. Paul, one of the things about the finance side in particular, because this is a lot about the finances and the invoicing and all the rest of it, you cannot move it quicker than time.
What do you mean by that, Doug? It's a good phrase.
Right. So if I said to you, we need to fix something in your business, we can allocate some time, we can get into it, and we can fix it, and in a week's time, we can have it all sorted. Your finances can only be done by the end of the month. You have to do the process. You can't do it again until the next month. So you've now done it twice, but it took 2 months to do it twice. But you're going to have to do it 3 or 4 times to learn how to do it and to get it being done properly. So we're 6 months, 9 months down the line, because you can only ever do it once a month.
Yeah.
Because that's when your finances are. So it's not something that you can just go, right, let's fix this. It's something that you have to work at, because you can only work at the speed of time.
Yes, and I think in farming in particular, I'm thinking of certain types of farming, in livestock farming. If you're a dairy farmer, for instance, often you're paid once a month by your milk buyer, and therefore, what farmers will tend to do, and it was not dissimilar in the arable side of and other parts, but they'll then have a week to pay all their invoices. So you're quite right, Doug. There's only a certain time of the month when we're going to sit in the office and do our invoices. And therefore we have to accept that is the time scale it's going to take. So to get the system in place might take us two or three goes. So is patience important then, Doug?
It is. Patience is important, but also what you'll see is that you can't just fix something. There's a lot of people who are impatient. We want to get done now, and especially entrepreneurial people who are active and they're doers, and farmers are active and doers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. And therefore they want to just do it, and they can get in there. And if it's if they have to put a new fence up to stop the sheep getting out of the field, they can just get out there and do it, and it's done. Job done, sorted, let's go and have a pint, whatever. You can't do that with the admin side. The admin side is a time-constrained system that you have to do bit by bit. But as you start to do it, you then start to see the rewards of it. But you're not going to see the rewards in a month. you're not going to see the rewards in 2 months. You start feeling it's better. Oh, that's much better because I've now got some help in this. But it's going to take 6 to 9 months to sort out the systems in order for them to be really working smoothly and you're not having sleepless nights anymore.
I think what you've just said, and anyone listening, almost replay the last 2 or 3 minutes, because what you've just said is so appropriate for, I think, the challenge we often find in farming, that what we end up with is an elephant task that we never get started on because I know I'm not going to get it done in one session. And
Yeah.
I've sat down today, I want to get all my systems sorted, all my invoices paid, and we
Never
never
happens.
make it. And I think that mindset shift of, do you know what, this could take 3 or 4 months before I really get on top of it,
Yeah.
is a really, I think, valuable lesson for people to
Yeah.
listen to, because you're quite right about us in farming. We often are quite impatient. We want to get things done quickly. We want to see the results quickly.
And we haven't got time to mess around. Let's just get it done.
Exactly. Whereas actually in reality, again, if I'm thinking of either growing crops or growing livestock, we understand that an animal will take a certain amount of time before it can produce milk. We understand that it'll take a while for crops to grow, particularly with climate change and everything else. There is that patience with
Yes.
with the operational side of
But
farming.
the patience
not with
comes
our
from an
animal.
understanding.
Yes, exactly. A knowledge of knowing that it does take time.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to work with that. And I think before we came on air, we were talking about the fact that the way farmers work is actually transferable from the operations into the admin, because it's actually, there's a lot of similarities, and those skills are transferable into admin. It's not something that is completely and absolutely different to what they do on a day-to-day basis. They just need to identify it. So having a proper system, having a proper schedule as to when things are going to, getting someone in to help, these are all things that actually helps to cement that process being done. Yeah.
So let's say we've done that, and I'm going to even almost like what's next. So I've got my system in place because I've had some help. Either whichever one comes first, either help and then system, or system then help. I'm starting to follow a process. I'm starting to see the results of that, maybe in time that I'm getting back.
Yeah. And less stress, Paul. It takes stress out of
Yeah, reduce stress, absolutely. So what comes after that? Where do I go next?
So once you get your basic systems in place, and once you get your basic process running, and it starts to become habit and all the rest of it, in today's world, there is masses of technology that makes it even easier. But you can't put the technology in until you've got your basics in.
That's so true.
Yeah. So you get your basics in place. It's like, well, how can I explain it? Excel spreadsheet. So we used to do our finances on Excel spreadsheets. Prior to that, we used to do them in a logbook, the ledgers. Yeah. And then we moved to Excel spreadsheets. And then we had something called QuickBooks and Xero and stuff like that coming in. If you haven't got them organized on a spreadsheet first and understand what all the bits are, when you put it into a system like Excel or QuickBooks, you have no idea what's going on in the background, because you're just dumping the numbers in. And if you don't put the right numbers in, and then when you're looking at it, you don't even know what you're looking at. So the first thing to do is do it on an Excel spreadsheet and understand how the system works. Once you understand how it all works, Dave, you don't come in on me on finances, not you. Just 1 second. 1 second, young man. Once you understand the basic principles of how it works, you can then put it into technology, and it can do it for you.
That is so true. What are you about to say? 'Cause I'm going to have a comment on this as well, Dave.
Can I come in now? So what I was going to say here, Doug, was nothing to do with finance. It was I'm trying to put my head in that of the farmer who is a little bit intimidated by technology.
Yeah.
Like myself, I'm paranoid about spreadsheets. I wouldn't know how to open one, let alone create one and work one. So you gave me some advice a long time ago when you realised how technophobic I was. And in my office, I've got 2 dirty, great big old whiteboards that I got from a charity shop. I've also got a flip chart stand with a big A3 pad of paper and marker pens. You can start off just by putting the stuff on that.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be technology based. As long as you do it, as how it's done is immaterial. As long as you've got that information there.
And I'm just going to support what Dave said and what you've just said, Doug. So, and I'll give an honest story here.
He's just after brownie points.
Yeah, no,
Honestly,
I want an apple from the
He's
teacher.
incorrigible, this bloke, honestly.
So literally, but what I think is interesting about the different generations as well in farming is that we can be tempted as those who are very comfortable with technology to start with technology. Right, I've got QuickBooks, I've got Xero, let's get that running. Let me tell you that in my business, I've had QuickBooks ever since I started. But what I realised is that QuickBooks and my system, if you like, my Excel spreadsheets, weren't talking to each other correctly.
Yeah.
So I had to, as you say, go back a couple of steps and say, right, what do I want this to look like? What is the process? What's the system first before you try and use the technology? Otherwise, you're
Understand the
reverse
concept.
engineering, aren't you? Yeah. So, and I guess the bigger your business is it true, Doug, that it's more difficult to re-engineer your business backwards? You know, you need to have your system first. And then
If it's a
technology.
small business, you can put your systems and processes in, and then your business grows with it.
Yes.
If you're already grown, trying to put your systems and processes in is a much bigger task.
Yeah. That's where I am right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I'm just having real empathy with anybody out there, because that's literally in Real Success's business right now, because we have grown rapidly. We're now reverse engineering, and because I am that entrepreneur that you talked about, Doug, I am the person that doesn't really want to do the systems. It's much more difficult now to reverse engineer the systems in, and I sit there sometimes thinking, do you know what, I wish I'd just put the system in place first. It's not my skill though, so I should have got some help. Everything you're talking about, Doug, for all those listening, get the system in place, get help to get the system in place if you need it. Then you'll start to see some results. Then you mechanize it with your QuickBooks or your Xero or Sage software, and there's various other bits of farming software that people use. But I think just to hammer it home, you're saying system first, technology second. Is that right?
Understand the system. Get an understanding of how the system works, so that when the technology is doing it for you, you know what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is not just for admin. Excuse me. This is not just for admin. This is how life generates as we develop. Yes. And I'm going to use the farming analogy on this. Yeah. We used to milk the cows by hand.
Yeah.
And then we put machines in that do the milking, and we have to tap in all of the stuff, and we have to program them and all the rest of it. Yeah. They learn how to do that.
Yeah.
They can learn how to do. It's just transferring skills.
It's just a skill.
It's a skill, and as we grow technology wise in the world, there are easier and faster ways of doing things. But we have to understand the principle of what we're doing before we can put the technology in.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
So, Doug, let's lighten it a bit. If you were invited into a family business on a farm, let's just say it's a large agricultural farm. If they said, we don't know what we're doing, we don't administratively, we're brilliant at farming, but we haven't got a clue about the numbers. It's kind of hand to mouth on each month on what's left in the bank. And what is the first thing you look for? What do you look for, or what questions do you ask, or what questions should the farmers be asking themselves?
Right. Okay. It depends on the space. Excuse me, the administration space that they've got. Quite often, we've described this before, it's a bit of a mess. There's all sorts of stuff all over the place. Yeah. So there's going to be two things that need to happen. First of all, you've got to gather all the bits of paper and make one pile. And then you have to sort out what's in there in terms of your of what's in your pile. And you take your top piece of paper and you work out what's that. And it might be you've got to allocate somebody to stand there with you and go, what is that? And it's that point when you do the 4Ds, Paul, on those pieces of paper. Are we going to delegate that? Are we going to do something with that? Or are we going to ditch it? Yeah. So the first thing to do is to get everything in one place so that you can just sort. That's your starting point. The second thing is once you've done that initial sort, you're going to have a list of things that need to be done. Yeah. And quite often, and this is, every business owner I go into, there is an overwhelm when you've got loads and loads and loads of things to do. It becomes an overwhelm in your head. Okay. So best way to sort that is to write down everything that's in your head or a piece of paper, every task. If it's 3 pages of A4, make it 3 pages of A4. Just make a list of everything that A is already in progress, B, needs to be done and you haven't started, C, you'd like to do, but you haven't got the time to do. So you make this entire list. Now, once you've got that list, you then say, now let's put that in priority order. So the most priority things become 1. So you go through the list, that's more priority than that. And you have a list and it's 1 to 100 or whatever it is. We know from historic reasons that the last 20% of that list doesn't need to be done, will never get done, and it doesn't matter whether it's done or not.
That's so true.
And worse than that, we can always add something to the list we've already done, just to cross it off to feel good about it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So we're not interested in the last stuff. That'll just die out. It might be it's not priority at the moment, but it'll become priority and it'll move up the list. Okay. So the next step is to say, of the first 5, because you can have a number of things on the go, what are you going to do first? And you start and you get those first 5 done. And Dave, you love doing this. When you've done it, you cross it out with a big felt pen. Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you cross it out and it makes you feel good. You just go, done. It's done. It's finished. It's completed. And you
I even use a green highlighter, as in it's gone. It's good. It's done. It's a green highlighter pen I use.
Perfect. Yeah. But you feel good about it then. And when you feel good about something and you've done something, you've achieved something, you want to achieve more and you want to feel more and you want to get more stuff. So you've got to start those small wins. You start with the small wins, but those small wins are better be the priority than not the things that are just nice to do.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about prioritising? Because that's another challenge I think we all have. And I'm referring to Peter Thompson, bless him, twice now. I'm going to something else I remember Peter Thompson talking about prioritising is that when you prioritise your list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm going to do that first. He talked about this, told a little story. He called it the carpet fitters technique. He said, why do carpet fitters always get it bang on? If ever you've fitted carpet yourself, you end up going, there's a bit of a gap there and that's not quite right. And I didn't fit it as well as a professional carpet fitter. And Peter Thompson asked the carpet fitter, why do you never make a mistake? He said, aha. He said, what you do, he said, you measure it once and cut it twice. What we do is we measure it twice and only cut it once. And what he meant by that was when you have your priority list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you do number 1, but then you reprioritize because number 2 in your first list may actually be number 4. So something else on your list may become more of a priority. Yes. So what I'm saying is we should be continually reprioritizing. Not on a Monday morning I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that stays 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the rest of the week. It might be by Wednesday number 5 has now become number 1. Does that make sense?
Yes, but also the fact is that when you take Dave's big felt pen and you cross off number 1, number 2 has now become number 1
automatically. But is it automatically? Well, that's my point. Is it actually, do you need to look at the list again and go, right, is this number 2 that's now become number 1, or is actually number 3 become more this constant sort of reprioritizing to make sure you're always working on the right task?
In principle, Paul, I would agree, but in practice, I would not. And the reason for that is you can spend all your time prioritizing instead of getting on with it and doing
it.
Yes, exactly. So you're not into positive thinking, you're into positive doing.
Yeah.
Doing. We're talking about doing. So once you've got that list, crack on and get it done. You know, if you spend your time reorganizing it and reprioritizing it, you're not going to get anything done. Just get on and do it, because the more you do it, the less you've got in your, that worry list that you had isn't getting any shorter. We don't want to worry about it. We want it done. Get it out.
I love that. Just get it done.
Yeah. So, in recap, if you're doing what you love, you're in the flame. If you've got to do stuff you don't want to do, you're in the wax. Hire someone to deal with that wax who loves wax.
Yes, because it's their flame. Yeah.
It's their flame. Yeah.
Take action, prioritize it, feel the benefit in 2 to 3 months and beyond, and be less stressed, happier, and knowing that you've got a business that is more productive and more profitable.
And I think I just want to add one more thing to that, Dave, and that is the skills that you use in your farm, the skills that you are using, just transfer them into the admin. It's exactly the same processes. It's exactly the same systems. Just go, okay, that's what we're going to do over here. We're going to allocate the time. We're going to do so. The time management is actually really, really important to get your farming right. It's really, really important to get your admin right.
Brilliant. That's so true.
I've really enjoyed this. It's, I mean, for such a potentially dry subject as admin, it's been upbeat, high energy. Thoroughly enjoyed having a blather with you again, Douglas. If people want to get hold of you, how's best for that?
Okay, so if you if you want to go and have a look at the website is www.exec, which is EXEC hyphen or dash TC, T for Tango, C for Charlie.com. All the contact details are on there. If you want to send me a direct email, easy, it's Doug, DOUG, at exec-tc.com.
And you've got a little team around the country, haven't you?
We have 15 consultants up and down the country. We are available to help anybody with anything their needs.
Well, God bless you, Mary Poppins. Thank you very much indeed. Have a terrific rest of your day, Doug, and thank you for your expertise, your time, your frank conversation. It's been a privilege.
Brilliant.
It's been a blast. Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye now.
Cheers. We had a really short piece from James, the Body Fix coach. Something that'll help your well-being. But remember, it's advisable to speak to your doctor before you start any significant exercise regime. Enjoy. Hi, we're here with James again at the converted cowshed that is now a gym in Burton-on-Trent. James from Body Fix. Please, anything he tells you to do, remember, shouldn't be doing it by yourself. Make sure there's someone else on the farm around. And if you've got any aches and pains and you're concerned about this, do see a doctor before doing any strenuous lifting or exercise. James, what's this exercise for?
Okay, so I was thinking about what you're doing throughout the day, climbing inside and out a lot of tractors. So a lot of different muscle groups required, so a lot of strength we need for those exercises, right? So I thought what we'd do is look at some single leg step ups on a box a little bit later. But first I'm going to have a look at a pulling exercise that's going to target the upper back, middle back and a little bit of the lower back as well. So in my experience, a lot of people, they are neglecting their backs as part of their training. They're very dominant in these front sort of the muscles here, so chest, shoulders, all on the front, everything's nice and strong, but on the back, very weak. So what we're going to have a look at is a horizontal or a recline row. So I've got a barbell set up on the squat rack, so anything that you can find that you can pull on is going to be ideal. So
if you imagine a metal frame, James has put a traditional pole with weights on each end up on the frame on hooks. Again, as he said, you could use a gate bar or a piece of fencing, or I suppose they could even throw a bit of rope over a rafter in the roof and pull themselves up doing that. Okay, so tell us more.
Okay, so again, as I'm using a barbell, I can use a couple of different variations with my grip on this. But what I'm essentially going to do is take hold of the bar or whatever you're using. I'm going to go for a bit of a grip that's outside, well outside the width of my shoulders on this. You can work a bit narrower as well. It's entirely up to you where you want to work. So
his palms are face down, about just over shoulder width apart.
Yeah, so what I'm going to think about doing here, I can just start from a standing position, and I'm going to get into the habit of pulling my chest towards the barbell. But I'm not going to use my arms, rather I'm going to think about squeezing my shoulder blades together and then bending my elbows and pulling my chest towards the bar.
So the energy is coming from the shoulders?
The back and the shoulders and the elbows, rather than the forearms, okay? So once I've got into the habit of that, again, my core's nice and tight and I'm in a nice straight line. I'm not allowing my bum to sag through and just drop down. I want to stay in a nice solid plank position, core tight, okay? So once you've got that nailed down, you can have a few steps forward. So I'm starting to go underneath the barbell a little bit. And I'm going to think about the same movement again. I'm going to squeeze my shoulder blades, pull on the elbows, take my chest towards the barbell. I'm trying to keep my elbows up as much as I can. I'm squeezing my back hard at the top and I'm just returning down to the start position by bending my elbows again or straightening them out.
So if you can imagine a horizontal bar up on a metal rack, and James isn't lifting or moving the weight, he's using the bar just to pull himself forwards and backwards whilst leaning backwards, which I'd imagine just increases
strength in the upper back, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at for this exercise. If you want to play around with it a little bit, you can get yourself further underneath if you can. So I'm in an even more of a harder position here to start with. Again, I'm going to squeeze my back and pull my elbows. I can play around with it by holding it at the top for a couple of seconds by just squeezing my back as hard as I can, or I can just work for some repetitions. And just so you can feel those muscles in the upper back or the lower and middle back work. And again, to change it, to get the different angles right, to get the different muscles firing, we could put the hands underneath, so we're pulling on the biceps more and the lower back muscles. So again, same sort of thing again, I'm pulling my chest towards, but I've took a narrower grip this time and I can feel my arms working a little bit harder than my back. So
that would be almost, I suppose, what the people who go to the gym would call a bicep curl.
It's essentially a bicep curl, yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. And how often should they be doing this to sort of, even if it's just to maintain their sort of
strength,
upper body to climb in and out of vehicles? And
yeah, so you could probably do this a few times a week. With strength exercises, we always suggest 2 to 5 sets of, you can go anything between 6 and 12 repetitions per set. So a couple of times a week would be ideal to start building that strength up if you do lack in that sort of department.
Wonderful. Thank you, James. So, on this drill down, Paul and I, we're going to just have a little chin wag. That's a Brummie expression. We're not going to wag chins. We're actually going to talk. Communication solves all problems. We're going to have a little chin wag about safety. Now, I was chatting to Paul about this, and Paul came up with this brilliant metaphor for it. So do you want to say that thing you were saying earlier about how the box?
Yeah. So what I was saying, for those of us that work in the agricultural sector, it does have, as we know, one of the worst health and safety records of all industries. I think last year, I'm right in saying, don't quote me on this exactly, but it was something like 34 people lost their lives in agriculture in the UK last year. So we know, we're all aware, aren't we, that we have a challenge with health and safety. But the thing I was saying to Dave before we started talking is, it's what box do we put health and safety in? Do we put it in what I call the compliance box, which then literally becomes a tick box exercise? And is it about compliance? So, we all have the red tractor standards to hit, and sometimes health and safety, quite rightly, is you need to tick a few boxes and make sure we're complying in a certain way. Or should it be in the culture box? So is health and safety really about compliance on farm, or is it about culture on farm? And therefore it becomes more about mindset than tick boxing. Tick boxing. Tick boxing? That's like a
tick boxing. It's like a really weird martial art.
Sport. Tick boxes, yes. We don't want to be doing that. Ticking boxes. There we got it. Got there in the end, yeah.
Box ticking.
That's the one.
That's what we should have said.
Yes.
Yeah, and a weird analogy here. I've got an 18-year-old son. He's got severe autism, and he's still at 18 years of age obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine. What's that got to do with safety, you might add? Well, the creators of Thomas the Tank were always about teaching values and morals, and every little story had its own theme around it. And Thomas is famous for saying, do it right from morning till night. And my son still screams that in the middle of Tesco's every Saturday when we go there. No idea why Tesco's and no idea why that thing, but he loves it. Do it right from morning till night. And Paul was saying it's more about a culture, a mindset, a way of doing something. And there are so many great farms out there and little areas of farms where things are being done right. And then we go, oh, that'll do, with another area. So I myself have been, I've got to be careful because I know this gentleman very well, but I went onto someone's farm locally. He's a friend of mine, and he was so proud to show me some of the new machinery he'd got, and how all good the fencing was in the run from the main road up to the farmhouse, and all the work he was doing for the environment and sustainability. And then I said, what's that? And it was just this huge pile of rubbish. And when I say huge, I mean at least as high as 2 transit vans, so as big as a big tractor. And it was huge, and it was just rubble, bricks, planks of wood, broken buckets, and some very, very flammable material. And it was a particularly hot day a few weeks back. So I said, what about this? He went, oh, that's just the rubbish pile. Now, the rubbish pile was at the side of a shed full of, I'm showing my ignorance here, I'm assuming bales of hay. And me, a simpleton, went, isn't that a fire risk? He went, no, it'll be all right. And all I heard was my son going, do it right from morning till night. Because my next door neighbour, Paul, was a station officer at the local fire station. And the number of fires he was called out to with agricultural farmers in and around Stafford, where he used to get quite cross. He said, because there are so many great farmers out there doing amazing things. He says, but just by not doing that, it has caused them to lose their crop and put lives in danger.
Well, I mean, I think it's true. I mean, in all aspects of farming, there are flammable materials. And in fact, even in the summer, silage, grass that we're keeping to feed our livestock, can get so hot inside that it can actually begin to self-combust.
Yes.
So you're right, having where we put flammable materials, where we put our chemicals, the chemical store, all those sorts of things are all part of probably the box ticking, got it. The box ticking exercise that we have to do for some of our standards for both the people we sell our products to. But actually, I would come back to which area are you putting it in? Are you putting it in this box of compliance, or is it about culture? And certainly from Real Success's perspective, when we're working with farmers to help them with their people, is it true, do you think, Dave, that people would like to work in a safe environment? Yes, of course
100%,
it is.
yeah.
And yet agriculture has one of the worst safety records of all industries. So actually, is that because it is inherently more dangerous than a construction site? I doubt it. There are huge cranes operating on construction sites. There are masses of very heavy materials. There will be chemicals. But what that industry has done over a period of time is made health and safety part of the culture now, rather than just compliance. And I think when we're drilling down into this, and when we maybe ask ourselves those questions, am I ticking a box, or am I genuinely concerned about the health and safety, not only of my staff, but my livestock and the local community? When you start to think of it in terms of cultural terms, it becomes a different conversation.
Yeah.
It's not, I've got to put a helmet on when I get on a quad bike. I've got to put a helmet on. No, it's not about you've got to tick a box. It's a really good idea because it might save your life. And of course, we've talked in our sessions here lots about leadership, and I often say, from a mindset perspective, the leaders have to go first with health and safety. So if you say to somebody, just climb inside the telehandler and I'll just put you on top of the roof, and you're the person driving the tractor and putting that person on the roof, or you're the person in the tractor itself and you're trying to climb onto a roof, whatever we do sets the culture. So I think safety is something that can be a real positive for you in your farm if you can demonstrate, particularly when you're recruiting people or interviewing, tell them what your attitude is toward health and safety. And if you're out there listening as an employee, I'd get you to ask the question of any future employer: what's your attitude towards health and safety, and how do you make sure people on the farm stay safe? And if the answer you get is, oh, it's just a load of box ticking and we just ignore it, I'll probably want to go and work somewhere else.
Yeah, it's about doing the easy so that you don't have to manage the difficult. If you do the easy, the difficult stuff doesn't tend to happen, or when it does, it's easy to put right because you've done the hard yards. So without wishing to sound patronising, because we wouldn't want to do that, it's about, as Paul says, making it part of the culture. So instead of going, oh, I don't know, there might be some gloves in the drawer over there, be actually quite proud to say, yes, we've got the safety gear, we've got the gloves, we've got the harness, we've got the hard hats. No, you can't use a chainsaw till you've been on a course. And I can right now hear you going, yeah, you got to go on a course to use a chainsaw. Well, yeah, that's because no one trusts a one-armed chainsaw operator. So there are reasons why these things happen. So let's see if we can make it part of the routine.
That's exactly it. It becomes part of a daily mindset of how do we stay safe today.
And personal standards it comes down to as well. And not in all cases, sometimes it is just sheer workload, lack of time, etc. You want to do this stuff. But sometimes it's about that'll do. And we need to change this culture. We need to increase the maintenance of machinery, fencing. we need to increase the cleaning of the yard and the vehicles because one, it prolongs the lifespan of them, but also it just makes for a safer working environment. How many people have, I wonder, in either an agricultural or a dairy farm setting, have ended up going to hospital just because they slipped on some mud on the yard? Or so let's see if we can increase the safety aspect and use it, as Paul says, as a positive rather than a tick box exercise.
And I think, you know, again, we don't want to preach here at people and say this is what you should do. We're just questioning whether or not where the mindset is. And I think you said something earlier on, and I heard it phrased in this way, which was ask yourself the hard questions, get an easier life. Ask yourself easy questions, get a harder life. And that idea of, yeah, sometimes it can be a pain. It slows us down. But I would just challenge all of us to say, if you spoke to somebody who was telling a story about how they had to go and tell a member of staff's, their family, what had happened to somebody, either they're in hospital or worse still, they've lost a life, and ask them what would they have done differently, they probably would have said, I just wish I'd thought about health and safety at the forefront of what we do rather than as an afterthought. We always have regrets afterwards. It's a bit like people say, when should you fit a burglar alarm? Most people fit it after they've been burgled, and we don't want health and safety to be like that. So if health and safety is at the forefront of our mindset, it's the first thing that we think of in the morning, the last thing we think of at night, as you say, from washing things down to making sure that things are put away, that can make a massive difference. And you'll never have to have that very difficult conversation with the family of somebody that works with you or for you.
Wonderful. See you again on another drill down.